this is a really special box because it is made from this material known as Mopa. It's only been in our collection since 2015. And it was generously donated by a brother and sister in memory of their brother who had recently passed away. He actually, I believe, used it as a sewing box during his life. So the way this box was decorated is that the indigenous craftspeople in what is now modern-day Colombia would have gone up into the Andes mountain region and would have collected little buds from a shrub. And these buds are about the size of a chickpea. They can be immersed in boiling water and they don't solubilize in water. So actually what happens is they become gummy, like chewing gum almost. They would then take it out of the boiling water, put it in their mouth, and actually chew it, hold part of it in between their teeth, and they would use their hands to pull out and make a sheet of this material. And very much like a cling film that we're all familiar with today, they would then take a substrate that they had pre-prepared, and they would put this film of Mopa onto the surface of the substrate. At that point, they would probably apply some heated weights that would then adhere the Mopa onto the surface of wood, in this case, and make the first layer of decoration. So when we look at this box in particular, we can see that that ground layer appears black to us. But in fact, this is made up of lots of different applications of different colored Mopa that's creating a wonderfully intricate design on the object. So at the moment, because this is mid-treatment, I've taken off all of the metal hardware that's usually not only functional but also decorative with this object. So in fact, in the front here, you can see there's this large rectangular mortise. It has a oval lock plate that normally goes here. So this is very much kind of where it stands at the moment in conservation. So this isn't functioning as it would normally do. So here's the full front that would typically be hinged, and I'm just going to lay it here very much as it would appear if the hinges were present. These top three are actually a false drawer front because from the top we actually have some compartments that you would put things in from above. Let's open that. We believe that the artists that were creating these, besides being exposed to European design motifs, were also seeing Asian lacquered objects from the same time period. Lacquer boxes typically are black on the exterior. They have intricate decoration on the surface, and the drawers are typically lacquered on the inside. So this is something that's very much in keeping with the Asian tradition of lacquered boxes. It's very unusual for us to find European objects that are so well decorated on the inside, like we see in this table cabinet. Right now we're looking at the back of this table cabinet, and the decoration is so amazing. I think that this is an object that definitely was designed to be seen from all sides. And what we see on the back, I think, really exemplifies this technique of using Mopa Mopa and building it up in layers. One area that we can see that particularly well is in this flower here, close to the corner. And it's almost in perfect condition, except we have one petal missing. And it's that missing petal that really gives us a glimpse into the process of layering that decoration. So if you look carefully here, you can actually see the indentation of where that piece of Mopa Mopa has now gone missing and would have sat essentially in that ground layer of Mopa Mopa. We can also see, when we start looking carefully at the decoration, some of the other details of how they made this surface. And there's a stringing that's used around some of the iconography, and we see it in the areas here around this feather-like motif, and also around the wings of this central pelican. At the center back, we have this rondelle, and what we have are two different colors of Mopa Mopa. They made essentially two different colored worms, and then the two were twisted together and pressed into position. So I've completed the first stage of treatment on this object a few years ago, and that first stage of treatment involved removing a non-original Western varnish that had been applied onto the surface of the Mopa Mopa. And what had happened was the non-original varnish had aged and become yellow over time, and it was really obscuring all of the beautiful colors and decoration of the Mopa Mopa. What I needed to do was to develop a method of removing the varnish from the original Mopa Mopa underneath. And in fact, I did the entire removal of the varnish under a microscope, and it took me about 6 months to remove the varnish. And the detailing that we see on this central image of a phoenix rising out of the flame, and the chevron patterns that have been etched into the wing of the phoenix, these are all things that I got to appreciate during the 6 months when I was meticulously removing that non-original varnish. And what I really love about it is how crisp and well thought out the designs are, from the beautiful points of the beaks of the birds to the fronds on some of the flowers and the feathers. When I was working and removing the varnish, it was such an enjoyable process of just being able to focus solely on the surface of this very decorative table cabinet that the days just disappeared. Every time I look at this box, I'm just reminded of the skill and craftsmanship that went into making it.